The rain had just begun to fall over the sleepless streets of Tokyo. Neon lights blurred through the droplets on the glass windows of a small cafe tucked away in Shibuya. Inside, a young woman named Aiko sat by the corner, her notebook open but her pen unmoving. She had come here every evening for the last 3 weeks, always alone, always waiting for something. Or perhaps for someone. Her gaze wandered to the passing crowds outside, umbrellas dancing in the drizzle like restless shadows. Among them, she spotted a tall figure pausing at the crossing. His name was Ren, a photographer known in his small circle for capturing fleeting moments of the city. He carried his camera slung across his chest, his eyes scanning the chaos as though searching for a story hidden within the rain. Aiko's heart skipped. She did not know him personally, yet she had noticed his presence several times. Always the same street corner. Always the same calmness in his movements. Something about him felt both distant and strangely familiar. That night, fate seemed to weave its thread tighter. Ren stepped inside the cafe, shaking the rain from his hair. His eyes met Aiko's for the briefest second. A quiet recognition passed between them, though neither spoke. He simply ordered a coffee and sat by the window, raising his camera to capture the glow of the neon against the wet pavement. Aiko's fingers trembled over her notebook. She wanted to write something, anything, but the words refused to come. Instead, she glanced at him once more. Their silence grew heavier, charged with questions unspoken. Who was he really? Why did she feel as though his presence had been written into her life long before this night? As the rain thickened outside, a faint siren echoed in the distance. Ren lowered his camera slowly, his expression clouded, as though the sound stirred a memory best left untouched. Aiko noticed. For the first time, he seemed vulnerable, as if burdened by something invisible. The night stretched on. Neither of them spoke, yet both knew this moment was not an ending, but the beginning of something neither could yet explain. The morning sun broke through the skyline of Tokyo, casting a golden hue upon the glass towers and narrow alleyways. Aiko awoke with the faint memory of last night still haunting her. The silent stranger with the camera lingered in her thoughts like an unfinished sentence. She tried to shake it off, yet her heart refused to let go. Her routine carried her back to the university library where she worked part-time. Rows of old volumes stretched endlessly, their silence a comfort she had grown accustomed to. But today, even the library seemed restless. She sat at the reception desk, pretending to catalog books, though her mind wandered to the cafe, to the rain, and to Ren. Meanwhile, Ren was already moving through the city. His camera clicked at every corner. A child chasing pigeons, a businessman asleep on the train, a stray cat curling under a vending machine. Yet his lens was heavy today. Each photo felt incomplete, as though he were chasing something beyond the frame. Something he had glimpsed the night before, across the dimly lit cafe. That evening, Shibuya pulsed with life once more. The neon signs glowed brighter, music spilled from hidden bars, and footsteps echoed against the wet pavements. Aiko returned to the cafe, her notebook tucked under her arm. She told herself she was there to write, but deep inside, she was waiting. And he came. Ren stepped inside with his usual quietness, his camera close to his chest. He noticed her immediately, though he pretended otherwise, ordering the same coffee, sitting at the same window. Yet the air shifted between them, charged with an unspoken recognition. For a long moment, they sat in silence. Then, as though drawn by something greater than themselves, Ren rose from his seat and approached her table. His voice, low and steady, broke the stillness. "You come here often?" Aiko looked up, startled. His Japanese carried the rhythm of someone who weighed each word carefully. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "And you always sit there," she said. A faint smile touched his lips, the kind that revealed more sorrow than joy. He gestured toward the chair opposite her. "May I?" She hesitated, then nodded. For the first time, they shared the same table. The world outside blurred into meaningless noise. They spoke little that night. Fragments of conversation drifted between them, books, photographs, the rain. But beneath every word lay a current of mystery. Rin never explained why he was always there, why he photographed the streets endlessly. And Aiko never asked. Not yet. As the cafe began to close, Rin leaned closer, his voice quiet but firm. There are places in Tokyo you will never see, unless someone shows you. Meet me tomorrow evening. Same time. Before she could reply, he stood, slung his camera across his shoulder, and vanished into the rain-soaked night. Aiko's breath caught. Something told her that tomorrow would not be an ordinary day. The following evening came draped in mist. Tokyo shimmered beneath countless neon signs, the streets buzzing with voices, footsteps, and the rumble of trains that never slept. Aiko arrived at the cafe earlier than usual, her heart restless, her thoughts a tangle of doubt and curiosity. She had never agreed out loud to his invitation, yet she was here, waiting. Minutes felt like hours. The door chimed, and Rin entered, carrying the same air of quiet intensity. His camera swayed lightly against his chest. Without a word, he gestured for her to follow. Hesitation gripped her, but something stronger urged her on. She closed her notebook, stood, and stepped out into the restless night at his side. They walked through Shibuya's crossing, where thousands of strangers brushed past like waves colliding in the ocean. Rin moved with purpose, weaving through the chaos as if he had memorized every path. Aiko struggled to keep pace, yet the thrill of the unknown pulled her forward. Soon, the crowded lights gave way to narrower streets, where lanterns glowed above izakaya doors and the scent of grilled fish lingered in the air. Rin spoke little, his gaze fixed ahead. Finally, he stopped at a rusted staircase tucked between two shuttered shops. Up here, he said softly. The stairs creaked beneath their weight, each step echoing with uncertainty. At the top, a forgotten rooftop opened before them. The city stretched endlessly, towers glittering like stars fallen upon the earth. The hum of Tokyo drifted up from below, yet here, it felt like another world. Rin lifted his camera, capturing the skyline. Then he lowered it and looked at Aiko. This is where I come when I cannot breathe down there, he said, nodding toward the chaos of the streets below. His words hung heavy, carrying a hidden sorrow. Aiko wanted to ask why, but she sensed he was not ready. Instead, she whispered, "It's beautiful." For the first time, his expression softened. He watched her rather than the city, as though searching for something he had lost long ago. The silence between them deepened, charged with meaning neither could name. And just as Aiko felt she might speak, a sound shattered the stillness, the sharp crack of glass breaking somewhere in the alley below. Rin stiffened. His hand tightened on the camera, his eyes darting toward the noise. Aiko's pulse quickened. She had no idea what lurked beneath that sound, but she knew this was only the beginning of something far greater than a simple meeting. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the narrow alleys, sharp and unsettling. Aiko froze on the rooftop, her eyes searching Ren's face for reassurance. But his expression was unreadable, shadowed by something she could not yet understand. Without a word, he moved toward the staircase. His steps were silent, cautious. Aiko hesitated before following, her breath shallow, her palms damp. The city lights below had never seemed so menacing. They descended into the dim alley, where the glow of a flickering lamp cast uneasy shadows. Shards of glass glittered on the ground, scattered from a broken window. Beyond the shattered pane, darkness stretched into a small abandoned shop. A faint rustling came from inside, followed by silence. Ren's hand lifted instinctively to his camera, as if ready to capture whatever might reveal itself. But this was no ordinary subject. He glanced back at Aiko, his eyes sharp. "Stay close." Her heart thudded painfully, yet she obeyed. Together they peered inside. The shop was empty, save for overturned shelves and dust that clung to every surface. Still, the air felt thick with presence, as though someone had just been there. Aiko whispered, "Maybe it was nothing." But Rin shook his head. His gaze swept the floor, pausing on a faint trail of footprints pressed into the dust. They led toward a rear door, left ajar. The sound of distant footsteps faded into the labyrinth of Tokyo's underbelly. He whispered, "They were here." Aiko frowned, confusion tightening her chest. "Who?" Ren did not answer. Instead, he raised his camera and snapped a single photograph of the empty room. The flash illuminated the decay for a heartbeat before vanishing, leaving behind the same uneasy dark. They left the shop quickly, the night air cool against their skin. Aiko struggled to keep pace with Ren as he moved back into the crowded streets. His silence was heavier now, burdened by secrets she could not name. Finally, beneath the hum of a neon sign, he stopped and faced her. His voice was low, urgent. "There are things in this city you cannot see until they choose to be seen. And once you notice them, they will never let you go." Aiko stared at him, her fear colliding with fascination. "Why me? Why show me this?" For a moment he said nothing. Then his eyes softened, though the weight of sorrow remained. "Because you remind me of someone I once lost." The words cut through her like a blade of truth. The city roared on around them, but between Ren and Aiko, the world had narrowed to a fragile thread of revelation. The streets of Tokyo pulsed around them, yet for Aiko the noise blurred into nothing. Ren's words echoed within her, a confession wrapped in grief. Someone he once lost. She longed to ask more, but his silence warned her that the truth was not yet ready to be spoken. They walked side by side, through Shinjuku's glowing maze. Lanterns swayed above smoky izakaya doorways, laughter spilled into the alleys, and trains roared in the distance. Yet between them stretched a quiet tension, delicate and unbroken. Ren led her toward a narrow passage hidden between towering buildings. At its end, a shrine stood quietly, its red torii gate glowing under the pale light of lanterns. Few people came here at night. The stillness was almost sacred. Aiko paused at the entrance, her breath slowing. The scent of incense lingered faintly in the air, mixed with the sound of leaves rustling in the evening breeze. Ren stopped before the gate and looked back at her. "This is where I make promises," he said. His voice carried a weight that made her chest tighten. He stepped closer to the shrine, placing his camera gently on the stone ledge, as if even that object did not belong in this place. Aiko followed, hesitant yet drawn, her heart urging her forward. Ren knelt briefly, his head bowed. The sight struck Aiko deeply, the quiet vulnerability of a man who seemed otherwise unshakable. When he rose, his eyes met hers with a piercing clarity. "There are things I cannot tell you yet," he said. "But if you choose to walk with me, you must be ready. Once you see what I see, you cannot go back to the life you had before." Aiko's breath caught. Every instinct pulled her to retreat, to run back to her familiar cafe, her library, her quiet evenings. Yet something stronger held her still, a force pulling her deeper into his world. She whispered, "I will walk with you." A silence fell, broken only by the distant hum of the city. Ren studied her, searching for doubt, but found none. Slowly, he nodded, his expression unreadable, though a flicker of relief passed through his eyes. Then, from the shadows beyond the shrine, a figure stirred. Aiko gasped, clutching Ren's sleeve. A man in a dark coat lingered at the edge of the torii gate, his face obscured, his stance unmoving. For an instant, the air turned cold, the lantern light flickering unnaturally. Ren stepped forward, his body tense, shielding Aiko behind him. The stranger did not advance, nor retreat. He simply watched, silent as stone. Then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he turned and melted back into the night. Aiko's voice trembled. "Who was that?" Ren's reply was quiet, steady, yet carried a shadow that unsettled her. "Someone who has been following me for a very long time." The night pressed heavily against them after the stranger vanished. Aiko's heart pounded, her eyes darting across the darkened alleys as if shadows themselves were alive. But Ren stood unmoving, his gaze fixed on the place where the man had disappeared. He finally exhaled, a quiet release of tension. "We need to leave," he said. His tone was calm, but Aiko felt the urgency beneath it. They moved quickly through the winding streets, the shrine fading into the distance. The neon glow returned, painting their path in restless color, yet the lights did little to ease the unease crawling along her skin. Every step, she feared the stranger would return, watching, waiting. Ren led her into a quieter district where small record shops and shuttered bars lined the streets. They ducked into a narrow passage and stopped before an old building with faded characters above its doorway. He unlocked the heavy door, guiding her inside. The space was dim, filled with shelves of old photographs, rolls of film, and a faint chemical scent. This was his studio, his sanctuary. He flicked on a small lamp, bathing the room in soft amber light. Aiko stepped carefully, her eyes drawn to the walls covered in photographs. Tokyo in every season. Faces of strangers, moments frozen in time. Yet some images unsettled her. They showed empty streets at night, blurred silhouettes that seemed more shadow than human, shapes half hidden in doorways. Rin noticed her pause.
His voice was low.
You see them too, don't you? Her throat tightened. Those figures. He nodded slowly. Most people cannot. But once your eyes open, they never close again. Aiko turned to him, her fear clashing with disbelief. What are they? For the first time, she saw hesitation in his face. He lowered his gaze, fingers brushing the edge of his camera. Not people. Not anymore. They exist between what we see and what we choose to ignore. They follow the ones who notice them. The weight of his words sank into her, heavy and undeniable. She shivered, remembering the stranger by the shrine, the glass breaking in the alley. All of it was real. Rin placed his camera gently on the table. His eyes lifted to hers, steady and unyielding. This is why I told you to be certain. Because now they will follow you too. Aiko's breath caught, the room tilting with the enormity of his warning. She wanted to deny it, to step back into the world where shadows were only shadows. But deep inside, she knew the truth. The city had changed, and so had she. Then, from the far corner of the studio, a frame rattled on the wall as if touched by unseen hands. Both of them turned sharply. The photograph within trembled, showing a blurred figure that had not been there before. Aiko's blood ran cold. The frame shuddered once more, the glass vibrating with a faint rattle before falling still. Aiko's breath hitched. She stepped back instinctively, her eyes fixed on the photograph. The blurred figure inside seemed to lean closer, as though pressing against the paper from within. Ren crossed the room swiftly, lifting the frame from the wall. He set it down face first on the table, his jaw tense. They know you are here now, he said. The words sank into Aiko's chest like ice. She forced herself to speak, her voice trembling. Why me? I never wanted to see any of this. Ren's gaze softened, though his eyes carried the same sorrow as before. You did not choose them. They chose you. The studio felt smaller with every passing second, shadows pressing in from the corners. Ren lit a small candle on the desk, its flame steady but fragile. Aiko watched the flicker, her pulse racing. She wanted to leave, to run into the ordinary chaos of the city, yet she knew the ordinary no longer existed for her. Ren finally spoke, quieter now. Years ago, someone close to me saw them too. She could not endure it.
They took her from me.
That is why I photograph, to hold them still, to remind myself that I am not losing my mind. Aiko's chest tightened. The weight of his grief was palpable, woven into every word. For the first time, she understood that his solitude was not a choice but a shield against unbearable loss. Suddenly, a faint knock echoed from the door downstairs. One, then two, then silence. Aiko's body froze. Midnight had fallen over the city, and no visitor should have come at this hour. Ren's hand moved to his camera, his expression sharpening. He motioned for her to remain silent. The knock came again, louder, insistent this time. Aiko whispered, "Is it them?" Ren did not answer. He stepped quietly toward the door, each footfall deliberate. The candlelight flickered violently, as though resisting a gust of unseen wind. The knock turned into a slow drag, nails scraping wood. The sound crawled up Aiko's spine, her breath catching in her throat. She clutched the edge of the table, staring as the studio seemed to tremble with invisible weight. Then, silence. Ren pressed his ear to the door. Nothing. He turned the lock carefully and pulled the door open a fraction. The corridor outside was empty. Only the hum of Tokyo lingered, distant and indifferent. Yet when Ren closed the door and turned back, Aiko noticed it. A photograph had slipped from the wall, falling silently to the floor. She bent to pick it up, but her blood froze when she saw the image. It was her, standing in the cafe, watching Ren from across the room. The photograph had been taken long before they had spoken a single word. Aiko's fingers trembled as she held the photograph. Her own face stared back at her, frozen in time, watching Ren from across the cafe. But she remembered clearly, she had never seen him take that picture. Her throat tightened. She looked up, her voice breaking. Ren, when did you take this? Ren's eyes darkened. He stepped closer, his tone firm, yet uneasy. I did not. At least, not in the way you think. Her pulse quickened. What do you mean? He took the photograph from her, his hands steady though his shoulders seemed heavier. Sometimes the camera captures what I never intended. Images appear on the film. People, places, moments I do not recall pressing the shutter for. I have learned not to question it, only to accept it. Aiko stepped back, her chest tightening. So they were watching me. Long before I even knew you. Ren's silence was the answer. He placed the photograph face down on the table, as though refusing to let its eyes stare back at them. The candle flickered again, stretching shadows across the walls, and Aiko shivered despite the warmth of the flame. Moments later, a metallic clang echoed from outside, the sound of something heavy striking the street. Ren crossed to the window, pulling the curtain aside a fraction. His jaw tensed. They're closer, he whispered. Aiko joined him, her heart in her throat. Below, the narrow alley was deserted, the lamplight harsh against wet pavement. Yet a dark figure stood at the far end, still and unblinking. Even from this distance, Aiko felt the weight of its gaze. Ren drew the curtain sharply and turned to her. You must leave. Go back to your world before it is too late. But her voice rose, desperate, trembling with defiance. There is no going back, is there? You said it yourself. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Ren's silence confirmed it. His shoulders sagged, the sorrow in his eyes deeper than before. Aiko steadied herself, though her fear threatened to consume her. Then I stay. Whatever this is, I will not run from it. For a long moment, he studied her, searching for weakness. Then, reluctantly, he nodded. He placed the camera strap over his neck, the lens glinting in the candlelight. If you are to stay, you must learn. Tomorrow night, I will take you where it began for me. But you must promise not to falter. Aiko swallowed hard, her heart hammering. I promise. Ren blew out the candle, and the studio sank into darkness. Only the city's distant hum remained, mixed with the lingering echo of unseen footsteps outside the door. The following night, the city seemed different to Aiko. Every alley, every flicker of neon, every shadow between the streetlights felt alive, as if unseen eyes followed her every step. She clutched her notebook tightly as she made her way back to Ren's studio. Ren was waiting outside, his camera hanging from his shoulder, his posture tense. He gave a brief nod, his expression unreadable. Without a word, he led her away from the bright streets, deeper into the veins of Tokyo where tourists never wandered. They crossed narrow bridges above the Kanda River, its black water reflecting broken fragments of light. The air grew colder, the sound of laughter and traffic fading behind them. Aiko's chest tightened as the city she knew fell away, replaced by forgotten paths that smelled of rust and rain. At last they reached an abandoned rail yard. Rusted carriages lined the tracks, graffiti clung to the walls, and silence reigned except for the soft drip of water from broken pipes. Ren stopped, his gaze sweeping the emptiness with grim familiarity. This is where I first saw them, he said quietly. Aiko shivered. The place felt wrong, as though time itself had fractured here. She stepped carefully between the stones, the sound of her shoes echoing too loudly. Ren lifted his camera, snapping a shot of the derelict trains. The click rang out sharply, unnerving in the silence. He lowered the camera and handed her a small flashlight. "Stay close to me. No matter what you see, do not run." The warning chilled her. She nodded, gripping the light tightly. They moved deeper into the yard. A faint fog clung to the ground, twisting around their legs like restless smoke. The flashlight beam trembled in her hands, illuminating fragments of steel and shattered glass. Then, in the mist, she saw it. A figure. Motionless. Too far to see clearly, yet undeniably there. Her breath caught. "Run." He raised the camera and clicked. The flash tore through the fog, revealing the silhouette, tall, faceless, still. But when the light faded, it was gone. Aiko gasped, her pulse racing. It disappeared. Ren's voice was steady, but heavy. "It never left. It only hides." The fog thickened, curling higher, swallowing the tracks around them. Aiko's heart hammered as whispers drifted through the mist, low and indecipherable, weaving through the silence. Ren's jaw tightened. He turned sharply to her. "This is the point of no return. If you hear your name in the dark, you must not answer." The whispers grew louder, circling them. And among them, Aiko froze as she heard it, her own name, breathed in a voice that was almost hers. Aiko's blood ran cold as her name floated through the fog, spoken in a voice that mirrored her own. It was soft, coaxing, almost tender, yet heavy with malice. She clamped her lips shut, her breath shallow, remembering Ren's warning. Ren's eyes flicked to her, sharp and urgent. "Do not respond." His voice cut through the whispers, firm as stone. The fog thickened, swallowing the tracks, the carriages, even the stars above. Darkness pressed closer, alive with unseen movement. Aiko clung to the beam of her flashlight, but the light seemed fragile, swallowed before it reached more than a few steps ahead. Then came another voice, lower, steadier, but no less chilling. "Run." He stiffened, his grip tightening on the camera. The voice repeated his name, a perfect copy of his own, echoing through the mist. Aiko shivered violently, fighting the urge to cover her ears. Run lifted the camera and snapped another photograph. The flash illuminated a cluster of figures standing only meters away, pale and faceless, their shapes wavering like smoke. Aiko's knees weakened, but Rin caught her arm before she stumbled. "They feed on fear," he said quickly. "Stand your ground." Her heart pounded painfully against her ribs. She wanted to run, to scream, but she forced herself to remain rooted beside him. The whispers rose in a chorus, dozens of voices calling her name, calling his, calling from every direction at once. Run raised the camera again.
Click.
Another flash. The figures lurched closer, their movements jerky, unnatural. He swore under his breath. "They are not just watching tonight. They are hunting." Aiko's grip tightened on his sleeve. "What do they want from us?" Ren's jaw clenched, his eyes never leaving the mist. "They want what they always take. Memory. Identity. Until nothing of you remains." The words tore through her, chilling her to the core. The fog swirled violently, and from its depths one figure stepped forward, taller than the rest, more solid, its faceless head tilting as if studying them. Ren snapped a final photograph, the flash searing the darkness. For an instant, the figure was caught in perfect clarity, looming over them. Then the light vanished, leaving only shadow. The whispers fell silent. The fog stilled. And when Aiko's eyes adjusted, the figure was gone. But something had changed. She could feel it in her chest, in the way the night itself seemed to breathe. She turned to Ren, her voice barely more than a whisper. "What happens now?" Ren lowered the camera slowly. His face was pale, his voice heavy with certainty. "Now, they will never stop following us." The rail yard lay silent around them, yet the weight of unseen eyes lingered, pressing close, waiting for the next moment to step out of the dark.